Marty wants to see this world as magical and beautiful. He wants to believe in something like love at first sight. But how do you maintain that positive and magical spirit when you're constantly getting rejected? How do us men maintain our spirit when the rules of dating don't support our emotional journey? And how do women maintain the positivity and joy of this beautiful journey of dating when those silly and misguided men continue to make it a painful experience for them? Society tells men that they need to be the initiators, the ones who do all the work. It seems to Marty that our society has beaten down all the expectations of gender, except when it comes to being a man, right? Everyone gets to be who they want, but men are still expected to be strong, emotionless, and unaffected by our situation. We should be offended by that, man. We should be offended. Hi, hello, and welcome. Welcome to another one of Marty's Minute Menitations. I'm Marty, and I'm here to lead you on another journey to save the sacred masculine from our toxic modern world. Thank you for being brave and courageous, for taking a step onto this spaceship so we may explore the unknown. If you're a new listener, thanks for joining this podcast where I like to explore and discuss the different struggles that we men face these days. And then I lead us all on a guided meditation to adjust our spirit and our soul accordingly. It doesn't mean it's only for men, okay? All of you folks who are women or non-gender conforming individuals can join as well. We can all learn from each other. I think that's what our society lacks these days, is a desire to learn from each other. So take a seat on our spaceship. There's plenty of room. Marty wants to make sure to give you all of the room you need on this spaceship. Room to breathe, room to feel, room to grow, room to think. So go ahead and get cozy. If you're an old listener, thanks for coming back. I kept your seat warm as always. It's so lovely to have you here once again. It really fills Marty's heart with joy when we come together as a community to learn more and to be better as men, as people. And it is a constant battle, isn't it? It doesn't get easier. But the things that matter in our society are never easy. In fact, they're riddled with difficulty and frustration. Sometimes you're caught doubting yourself, lost in a cave of your own creation. You hear the growls and calls of monsters that lurk in your cave, and you wonder if you should continue, or if you should just lay down, get in the fetal position, and just give up. Allow yourself to be food for the monsters of your mind. Well, Marty doesn't want to be food for some mental monster, okay? Do you? Do you want to just lay down and allow the vicious monsters of your own mind to nibble on you? To eat away at your body when you were perfectly capable of walking through the cave with confidence, completely unnibbled? Sometimes we men need a little pep talk, a little push to get ourselves back in the game, as they say. So if you feel like you're laying down in the cave, awaiting the arrival of your mental monsters to take a nibble, maybe you need to stand up and say, I will not be nibbled. Say it with me, men. I will not be nibbled. I will not be nibbled. That's right. Marty likes to say that whenever he's trapped in the cave in his mind. I will not be nibbled, monster, so step back. Lastly, if you enjoy this episode of Marty's Minute Menitations, please show your gratitude by visiting Marty's PayPal account or Buy Me a Coffee account to make a one-time donation. Or you could become a monthly donor on Marty's Patreon page, where you can get all sorts of benefits like your own personal mantra written by Marty, a list of Marty's inspirations for the month, or some unreleased content. All of those links will be in the description, including a link to Marty's website. You can also spread the word of Marty by telling your friends and family about my meditations or leaving a review on Apple Podcasts. All of these forms of gratitude help Marty to create his meditations and put them out into the world free of charge for all to hear. And if you're familiar with Marty's Minute Meditations, you'll hear that the sound quality on this episode is a little different. That's because Marty's original microphone, it passed. It went away. It just doesn't work anymore. And Marty's sad to see it go, but thanks to the gratitude and generosity of his friends, he has a microphone that he's only borrowing from them. So if you enjoy Marty's Minute Meditations and you wanted to have that beautiful sound quality that Marty loves to have on his meditations, please consider making a donation so that Marty can invest in a new microphone. I mean, Marty knows how awful it can be when you're listening to a meditation, right? And the sound quality is all weird, it's off, it doesn't sound good. But Marty likes to hug you orally with his meditations. He likes to take his voice and almost make a nice warm bubble bath with his voice so that you can saturate yourself in there. You can lay down in that hot bubble bath, relax, feel at home, and let Marty's voice just wrap you in its warmth. That's what Marty likes to do with his meditations. So if you like that too, please consider donating so that he can buy another high-quality mic. Also, donating will allow Marty to focus his time solely on his work so that the world may receive more words from Marty. You may be thinking, hey Marty, why should I pay for what others get for free? I don't think it's fair for me to pay for these amazing meditations while others just get to drop in and listen free of charge. What kind of communist system are you trying to shove down our throats, Marty? Whoa. Take a breath in and release that negative energy, because you're being a true martyr for manhood when you support Marty's message. After all, Marty can't do it without all of you out there listening and spreading the word. So just remember, when you donate and help support, Marty thinks you're a hero, and he'll make sure the world knows how much of a hero you are. Now, with all that being said, let's cleanse ourselves of any negative energy and begin today's episode of Marty's Minute Menitations. The Sea of Loneliness. Men, do you find it difficult to date these days? Are you getting lost in a sea of faces in an attempt to find your soulmate? Swiping right on so many ladies, only to feel like you're swiping left on your soul. Ew, Marty. Soulmate? I'm not looking for a soulmate. I'm cool. I'm fine. I don't need anyone. I hate when you get all soft and cheesy on this podcast. I thought this podcast was for men, not for little sissy boys who are looking for a soulmate. First of all, Marty can be a soft little sissy boy and a strong, confident man at the same time. That's what this podcast seeks to find balance in. Secondly, it hurts me when you use strong words like hate. And thirdly, aren't we all looking for a soulmate? Even us big, strong, confident men, which Marty is also one of. Aren't we looking for that person who makes us feel whole, who sees us for who we are and loves us the more for it? We all seek a companion's shoulder to rest our head on so we can feel like everything's going to be okay. That sounds pretty nice to Marty. I'm sure it sounds pretty nice to you too. One of the greatest gifts of this life is the opportunity to spend it with someone special. But you have to find that person first, right? We have to navigate our way through the dating apps and the meetups and the setups and the first dates and the blind dates. And Marty wants to help the men out there to find their soulmates. That's not to say the ladies and non-gender conforming individuals can't listen in, like I said before. In fact, Marty encourages you to take part in this conversation, since a man finding their soulmate may mean a lady or non-gender conforming individual finds their soulmate. If we can all be on the same page of this dating novel, then maybe we can all live our fairy tale romance. That would be nice, wouldn't it? Marty would love to live his fairy tale romance. You know, wandering through the woods one day. It's just a beautiful summer day, but it's cool. You know, the trees always make it nice and cool. And I'm running through the forest. And ooh, what do I see? I see a lovely woman. Her back is turned to me. She's in this pristine white dress, right? It's beautiful. It's thin though. It's not heavy. It's light, right? It's light. She's just staring at a tree, mesmerized by it. And I see that tree and I go, oh my gosh, I'm mesmerized by that tree too. This must be my soulmate. Only my soulmate would be mesmerized by the same tree I'm mesmerized in. I mean, think about it. A forest is filled with trees, hundreds, thousands of trees. What are the chances that a woman would be interested in the same tree that I would be interested in? She must be my soulmate. So I approach her. She senses my presence. She doesn't turn, right? She doesn't turn. No. She just allows me to join her, right? Her hair is cascading down her back, all the way to her bottom. By her bottom, I mean her butt, not the bottom of her body, not her feet, though that would be pretty magical too. Marty would love that, to see a woman with hair all the way down to her feet. My gosh, that's a fairy tale romance. That seems like a fairy tale. But Marty can't have those high expectations, right? Marty has to... Sometimes Marty realizes he has high standards, so he has to take a breath and realize that a lot of women don't have hair all the way down to their feet. And also, that's a lot of work to expect from a woman, right, Marty? So take a breath, Marty. Realize that that's... But it's a fairy tale, right? We could all daydream, right? Marty comes up next to her and she looks at him, right? Her beautiful hair is cascading down her face. Maybe it's a black woman with this giant afro. My gosh, how beautiful would that be? Beautiful black woman with a giant afro, right? Beautiful puffy hair. She turns. She sees me. And she goes, "Isn't this a lovely tree?" And I turn to her and I say, "It is, isn't it?" Wouldn't that be magical? That would be a fairy tale romance. But this dating world is a strange one, isn't it? We go on our phones to find love, right? We don't travel through the forest seeking love. We would never find it in the forest, right? Instead, we're on our phones. And what do we find instead? Insecurity, frustration, hopelessness. Or maybe you've quit the apps. You've discovered how fruitless that path is, and instead you try to approach women in public. But the judgment of our modern age makes you hesitant, scared, uninterested. Maybe it just feels better to go your own way. Take a path away from dating, away from the pressures of finding a partner. Why bother, you may ask? Why try if women view men so harshly these days? Why try if being a man is seen as a problem? Why try if merely trying is seen as part of the patriarchy? Because that's what we receive, isn't it, men? That's what we experience in our culture. You know, sometimes Marty wishes he was a lesbian. That's right. This way he could approach women all day without the fear of it being labeled as misogynistic or part of the patriarchy. Marty would talk to so many lovely women and begin so many wonderful relationships, all because Marty was a woman interested in women instead of a man interested in women. But Marty has to embrace the sex, gender, and sexual orientation the universe has bestowed upon him, as all of us must. It's a lovely gift, even if it's frustrating given our society. No matter who you are, finding your soulmate, which is supposed to be the most soulful experience of our lives, can feel like a soulless endeavor. Swiping through the Tinder and Bumble may just make you grumble. Wandering the endless bars, coffee shops, and clubs may cause you to feel like a solitary soul suspended in the sea of loneliness. The sea of loneliness. Getting overtaken by the waves, being sloshed back and forth and back and forth. The sea of loneliness. Clinging onto the driftwood of hope to stay afloat through calm waters or even the most turbulent tempests. The sea of loneliness. Feeling the cold water embrace your body as you try to keep warm, with the harsh sun bearing down on your delicate skin. Anxious about the savage sharks that lurk below, engulfed by the seemingly endless void of loneliness. Calling out to the ships that pass by, hoping someone, anyone will hear your calls. Help me. Save me from this eternal ocean of loneliness. I'm over here. But they don't hear you. No one hears you. They pass without a care in the world, but you still call out until your voice is hoarse. You can't feel your feet, and your eyes are crusted with all that disgusting, crusty stuff. You know what I'm talking about. You know, when you wake up in the morning and there's all that eye crust, and it's fun to pick it off after one night. It almost feels like an accomplishment, like, ooh, I got all that crust out of there. You know, wow, I have so much crust. Well, in the sea of loneliness, You get so much eye crust, you can't even see straight. The sea of loneliness. You see, this sea of loneliness isn't a real sea that you can find on the globe. Certainly there are plenty of seas in the world, and being caught in the middle of them is quite terrifying. But the sea of loneliness I speak of is not a real sea, folks. It's a metaphor. The sea I speak of is actually within you. That loneliness you feel, the turbulence, the swaying of the waves, the deep water sharks, the scorching sun, that's all inside of you. That loneliness is a part of us. But why travel this sea, this ocean? What do we seek? Why, land, of course. We seek the sandy shores of Companionship Island. That's right. We long to be tossed ashore, to feel grounded, to see the plentiful flora and fauna of this new world. That will certainly bring us joy. To walk hand in hand with someone as we explore this land, right? We think this new land will save us, will make us happy, will fulfill us. But what if we wash ashore and Companionship Island is already inhabited by an indigenous people, or wild beasts, or food that we're allergic to? Marty can't live in an island with kiwis, that's for sure. Kiwis, give him an allergic reaction. He means the food kiwis. Marty knows that the word kiwis can be used as a slur, but he wants to assure you he means the fruit kiwis. All right? It gets really scary. Marty's throat gets all scratchy, and he has trouble breathing. That would be strange if Marty had that kind of allergic reaction when he was surrounded by a group of people, like a certain group of people. But that's why racism doesn't make sense to Marty. It's not like getting close to a black person or a Mexican person makes your throat close up or gives you hives. I don't think there are any cases of people being allergic to other people. But, Marty doesn't know everything, right? Marty has to admit that. Just like he doesn't know when you'll come to the shores of this Companionship Island. Or if you ever will. Maybe you'll continue to float in the sea of loneliness forever. Marty, why would you be so pessimistic? Why would you say such an awful thing, like that I'll be in the sea of loneliness forever? Well, we never know, do we? I mean, Marty is still alone. Marty is still lost at sea, forever floating in the void of an unforgiving and meaningless ocean. But that's okay. Marty's okay with that, right? He's just waiting for the sharks to find me and drag me down into the darkness. At that point, I would be asking for it. Take me, sharks. Take me into the abyss. Take me from this meaningless and singular existence. That's okay. It's okay that Marty feels that way. It's all right. It's perfectly normal. It's a normal thing. At least he's been told. Even if he says to these sharks, like, take a nibble. Go ahead. Go on. Just take a taste. I bet Marty tastes real good. I mean, he must, since his diet is filled with so many whole foods and nutritiously dense juices and supplements. Marty gets so healthy so that he can appear that way to the ladies, but he gets turned down anyways. But that's okay. It's part of life. You get turned down, and then you have to come back stronger, more confident. For all he knows, Marty will get turned down by the sharks, too. Some sharks will come up and take a nibble and go, no thanks. I'll find a better bite out here. After all, there are plenty of fish in the sea of loneliness. And then another will stop by and take a nibble, once again unsatisfied. And Marty will be left in the middle of the sea, pleading for the sharks just to take me down into the abyss, into the depths of this ocean, so he can end this awful pain of his wounds. But instead, he floats in the ocean, painting it red with his blood until it's just his corpse floating, alone, in the sea, forever. The sea of loneliness. Wow. Marty went to a pretty dark place there. And I'm sure you've been in that dark place too. I'm sure you've felt like you'll never get out, never find land, that you'll be drifting at sea forever. Maybe some of you men out there have surrendered yourself to the sea, like Marty's starting to feel these days. Everyone else is trying to find an island, but you've decided to go your own way. Nah, you say, I'm just going to stay lonely at sea. I don't need a woman. I don't need a partner. I don't need to find one of those companionship islands. I don't even believe in a soulmate. That would be fine. But the result is that you hate the islands. You don't even want to acknowledge the islands. If you had it your way, you would raise the sea level to flood all the islands, right? Drown everybody in this ocean, in this sea of loneliness. Well, if I'm going to feel lonely in this sea of loneliness, if I'm going to be paddling around, maybe everybody else should feel that way. But the biggest problem is that you aren't even happy when you're at sea. When you've gone your own way, you've decided that the sea of loneliness is the only good option. The sea of loneliness. Marty, what's with all this sea talk? I'm getting seasick just listening to you. Can we get to land, please? A big piece of land, not some silly island. I don't want seafood. I want a delicious veggie burger and some fries. But you keep going on about this ocean of loneliness. It's really bumming me out. Well, this is the world we live in, isn't it, men? With the social media and the video games and the porn. They're all small vessels floating on our sea of loneliness, and it makes it very difficult for people to date, for all of us to find someone. But Marty also thinks that the rules of dating have made it difficult to find an island out there. For instance, men, how often do you introduce yourself to a lady these days? How often are you willing to break the ice, as they say? I'm sure a lot of you are saying, not very often, Marty. Why should I take that risk if a lady is just going to think I'm a creep, or if I'm going to get rejected, or if I'm going to be humiliated? Well, someone has to do it, right? Why not you be the hero, the initiator, right? Marty thinks that all the time. Marty, tell us how you did it. Give us your wisdom. After all, aren't you in a beautiful and fruitful relationship with a courageous and gorgeous lady? Thank you for asking. But as I mentioned before, no, I'm not. You, Marty, not in a relationship, you may continue? How? Why? You're so lovely and full of life and wisdom. I know. Marty is well aware of his strengths and how wonderful of a man he is. Exactly, you say. You're the kind of man any lady would want. Something must be wrong with them. I mean, they must be crazy to not want you. The whole world of women has gone mad. What's wrong with them? Now. Marty doesn't want to blame women, but it is interesting that they wouldn't be interested in me. I mean, Marty is soulful, right? He's humorous. I tell some pretty great jokes on this podcast. I'm not all serious, okay? But I also balance it out with the dark and brooding attitude sometimes, which the ladies love. So Marty's really confused. Why wouldn't a woman want Marty? Well, Marty, you may ask, do you think they know you exist? I mean, maybe the perfect lady is out there waiting to meet you, but you haven't made yourself known to them. That's ridiculous. I'm here, ready for the universe to present a soulmate. The universe will do the work. The universe will pull the thread that will eventually connect my soulmate and I together. Like that tree in the forest, right? It'll bring us together and we'll meet without needing to force anything, it's very wu-wei. You don't do anything. You don't force it, okay? When Marty sees a lady at a coffee shop or at the bar, the juice bar, because, Marty doesn't drink anymore. He needed to step away from that. Anyway, when he's in the juice bar, he has his own method of attracting a goddess. When she walks through the door, he senses her presence, which is very often. Do you believe in love at first sight? Marty does. Marty believes in that magical sensibility the universe gives us to know who we belong with. Our tree, if you will. The problem is, Marty experiences love at first sight with many goddesses. It's always a fairy tale romance when a woman walks in the room, but the universe never seems to make it happen. Oh sure, Marty does his energetic breathing technique. You know it, of course. Marty will breathe in her spirit and breathe out a call to her, right into the space, a message to the universe. He will imagine this goddess approaching him, because Marty doesn't want to risk seeming like a creep or a rapist by approaching her. He wants to respect her boundaries, so he imagines her approaching him. He manifests it in his mind. He imagines that she comes to him and we lock eyes, and in that moment, we know that we are meant to be together. Our souls intended to be intertwined in the knot of existence and being. Our hearts burst open like stars in a supernova, and we create our own universe together. We meet. We see each other. She says, hello, and I say, hello. Doesn't that sound lovely? Well, it doesn't seem to be working, does it, Marty? Ouch! That hurts Marty's feelings that you would say that. Well, you're still drifting in the sea of loneliness, right? Seems like this wu-wei way isn't really working, Marty. Well, how dare you insult an ancient philosophy that's racist and offensive? Yeah, says the lonely guy. Okay. Marty understands. Maybe he should be more active. Maybe things won't just happen for Marty. Maybe he has to put some work into it. I get it. I understand. Maybe you just aren't confident enough, you may say. Well, Marty certainly is confident enough. Remember what I said in the beginning of the episode, that I could be a little sissy boy and a strong, confident man at the same time, okay? Marty is strong and confident enough. He just doesn't feel like he should have to put in all that work, okay? Because society tells men that they need to be the initiators, the ones who do all the work. It seems to Marty that our society has beaten down all the expectations of gender, except when it comes to being a man, right? Everyone gets to be who they want, but men are still expected to be strong, emotionless, and unaffected by our situation. And this is just Marty speaking his truth right now, all right? He's not meant to put down anybody else. We men are still expected to be the initiators, even if a woman says they don't want men to be. We should be offended by that, men. We should be offended. And some women will go, no, Marty, women always initiate it. If you're at a coffee shop or at a bar, we as women are the ones who give the glance to allow the man into our sphere, our aura. But ladies, you have to understand, you may think you initiate it, but we as men are expected to do the heavy lifting. And men, we should be offended by that. Because we've always been expected to do the heavy lifting. Just because a lady looks at a pile of rocks doesn't mean she's the one who started building the house, right? No. The lady looks at that pile of rocks and then looks at the man, expecting him to do the job. And dating is no different. Some ladies may be saying, wow, Marty, you're coming off as pretty ignorant right now. Well, Marty's speaking his truth, and if you want to get credit for building the house, then maybe you should get up and build the house. Wow. Marty needs to apologize. He's just been watching a lot of YouTube videos about men going their own way, and maybe he got a little carried away there. Maybe Marty is still feeling the effects of this red pill in our society, so Marty is sorry. That red pill could be pretty vicious, and it's kind of everywhere you look. And Marty doesn't want to be under the effects of any kind of social drug, None of us should be. He doesn't want any of you men out there to feel that way. Marty wants to see this world as magical and beautiful. He wants to believe in something like love at first sight. But how do you maintain that positive and magical spirit when you're constantly getting rejected? How do us men maintain our spirit when the rules of dating don't support our emotional journey? And how do women maintain the positivity and joy of this beautiful journey of dating when those silly and misguided men continue to make it a painful experience for them? That's exactly right, Marty. How? We're hearing a lot of questions and no answers right now. Well, we have to ask the right questions in order to get worthwhile answers. Otherwise, we aren't even asking the right questions and we keep running in circles because the answers aren't very good. The sea of loneliness. So maybe Marty needs to ask himself the question, honestly, earnestly. Marty, are you confident enough? Are you sometimes maybe being a little sissy boy more than you are being a strong, confident man? Maybe you're going, Marty, I have the solution for you. Picture yourself in that coffee shop, in that juice bar, and that lady walks in, that lovely, beautiful woman, and she's looking at the same tree you are. And now you put aside that little sissy boy, and you listen to that strong, confident man. What would you do in that moment? That's a good question. That's a good question. Marty appreciates that question. That's the right question to ask. Marty would take a breath in to get the courage. To receive her energy and to initiate the nonverbal communication. And once that goddess sensed Marty's presence, he would make eye contact with her. I would stare into her eyes. I wouldn't smile, because that would make me seem creepy. I would try to keep my face as stoic and still as possible, but I would widen my eyes in order to let her into my soul. And my soul is very powerful and strong. Maybe it would be too much for a woman to handle, because a lot of women seem taken aback by my spirit. But if they would stay with me, They would look into my eyes if it is a truly brave and courageous woman, and that's the only kind of woman Marty is interested in. If they look into my soul and allow me to look into theirs, then I'd slowly lift myself from my seat, and while maintaining eye contact, I would slowly approach her like a tiger. I would slowly prowl toward her, ready to pounce. Metaphorically, of course. Marty only lets his physical pounce out in the bedroom. He unleashes the beast for his partner when they're in contact on the mattress on his floor. I put my mattress on my floor because unleashing the beast can be dangerous on a bed frame, so Marty keeps his mattress on the floor. Anyway, Marty would slowly prowl toward her, and once he reaches her, about a foot from her, he would say, "My queen, my goddess, I sensed your presence from afar, and I long for your touch, for your soul to intertwine with mine in this crazy dance we call love." At this point, she would be intrigued, curious, so I would push on. I would say, "Goddess, your sacred being is lost in the sea of loneliness, and we're just passing, each suspended on the remains of a sunken vessel, pining for the island of companionship. By now, we would have attracted the attention of the public because of our electricity. There's so much energy happening in between us. That thread is being pulled by the universe of two soulmates, meeting and contacting for the first time. I mean, how can you ignore an honest and heartfelt proposal for love? But I continue. Please, my goddess, still staring in her eyes, will you join me on this journey of life? Will you be my partner in this scary, unpredictable reality of our modern zeitgeist and walk with me hand in hand as we discover our sacred purpose in a seemingly meaningless world?" Pretty powerful stuff, huh? Marty doesn't know if it would work. In fact, now that he says all these things, he imagines that most women would laugh at me, cast me aside. But Marty refuses to apologize for what comes in his heart. Some may think that it's too forward, too verbose, too passionate, but Marty refuses to hold back the passion that burns in his heart. And I'm sure a lot of ladies out there would love to hear that passion. Safely, confidently. But it's not easy for Marty and us men getting turned down so often, especially since, we give our heart each and every time to women in public settings. Sometimes it feels like the universe is beating down on us. But we have to remember that the higher self may be seeking the challenge, that this constant, unrelenting beating of the soul is a good thing. It's a good thing that Marty's confidence and self-worth is being eroded at every turn. It's a good thing, man. It's a good thing. It's a good thing. It's a good thing. It's a good thing. It's a good thing for us to never have successes at dating or opportunities for our confidences to be lifted so that we can be stronger. That's what men have to be, right? Stronger. And so maybe we need to change these rules, right? And I could hear it already. The women are yelling at me going, "Well, Marty, if men just did such and such, women wouldn't have to be so defensive and cold." And the men are screaming, "Well, Marty, my guru, my guide, don't you think if the ladies just did such and such, men would be willing to approach them or wouldn't seem so creepy?" Of course, folks, if everyone else did what we wanted them to do, it would be such a perfect world for us, wouldn't it? Like if everyone loved Marty's meditations and realized how valuable these meditations were to mankind, and everyone in the world donated $1 to Marty, well, Marty would be living his own perfect world, right? With a new microphone and a whole studio setup. Now, Marty is still holding out hope for that, but he understands that it's not so likely. And he has to breathe and let that be okay. All right? So to you men and women out there who are trying to put the emotional labor on the other, you must realize the emotional labor must be shared. Isn't a relationship shared? No one person owns the relationship. It's both individuals. And if you're polyamorous, then it's split between however many people are in that relationship. Maybe it's 3 or 4 or 5. That's pretty overwhelming to someone like Marty because Marty can barely maintain one relationship. I mean, how do you travel between multiple islands of companionship? Do you find a way to combine all the islands together? Or maybe do you try to build a bridge between these islands? Do you see each other on different dates? Do you have a schedule that dictates when and where you see each person? Or is it like a party all the time, where all of you get together, right? join on the same companionship island. If you're polyamorous, you can write into Marty. Just send a message to Marty@martysminute-meditations.com to help guide us through your journey of polyamory. Marty, get back on track. How do we solve this problem of our chaotic dating world? You're right. Sometimes Marty gets sidetracked. Marty's point is that we're all uncertain and confused and scared. The first moments of contact are a complicated one. Someone sees the other and the games begin. How are they going to react? Maybe you smile at them and they smile back. Now you're caught in the question. Are they welcoming me in? Am I free to enter their space and aura? Are they interested in my aura? Maybe they're just smiling to be nice. If they didn't smile, maybe they're playing hard to get. Maybe they want me to prove myself and approach them. If they haven't looked at you, maybe they know you're there, but are avoiding your gaze and saying, approach me with your spirit. Women don't always just speak with their mouths and eyes. Sometimes they speak with their energy, their spirit, their body. But now the pressure's on. You feel yourself sweating. What was for a moment an exciting initiation, an opportunity, a breath of electricity, a vast forest of possibilities, is becoming something else. It's becoming that sea of loneliness. You feel yourself drifting deeper and deeper into the ocean. Should you approach this woman? Should you say something? What if I don't say anything? What if I do say something and I scare them away? Maybe they are my soulmate, and if I don't play this game right, I'll send her jumping away like a frightened bunny. Then I've scared my bunny away forever, and I'll be left alone, floating in the sea of loneliness for the rest of my life, because I didn't approach her right. The rest of my life will be spent alone. I'll go to bed alone. I'll eat alone. I'll enjoy my green tea in the morning alone. If I don't risk it, if I say nothing, at least I could say I didn't mess it up. At least I could go home knowing I haven't failed miserably, but just avoided seeming like a fool. And as you're wrestling with these anxieties and fears in your mind, that potential soulmate is walking out the door. They've vanished, never to return again. It's kind of like a darned if you do, darned if you don't situation. Too many questions, too many uncertainties. But what if we got rid of all those questions and uncertainties altogether? What if we cut out the middleman of the uncertainty? Marty thinks we need buttons. Buttons? Marty, what are you talking about? Well, if we had buttons, we could say when we were willing to be approached, to approach, or when we are just single and want a moment to be. Marty, am I going to have to wear a button that says single and ready to mingle on it? Sounds like another one of your communist systems you keep shoving down our throat. No, that's ridiculous. Marty is proposing a very defined color-coded system. And each particular relationship situation would have a specific colored button associated with it. If you're single and would like to be approached, for instance, the button you would wear would be violet. However, if you're single and don't want to be approached at this particular moment, then it will be a neon purple. If you're single and are uninterested, you will not wear a button. Anyone who has no interest whatsoever in any kind of relationship will not wear a button. Maybe you're single, would like to be approached, but you like someone to serenade you when they approach you. Hot pink. Same thing, but instead of serenading, you want someone who's confident and assertive. Fire truck red. You want someone who plays it cool. Mellow yellow. Someone who's adorably awkward and not very good at approaching women. Lime green. Maybe you're single, willing to be approached, but only if that person voted for the same person you did. Hazel. Maybe you're single, willing to be approached only if that person voted for the same person, but you would be open to someone who voted for the other guy because you like to have an open mind and you'll reject them the first 2 times and start to soften up the 3rd time. Medallion yellow. Maybe you're in a relationship. We all know how crazy that could be. Being approached if you're in a relationship. Well, if you are in a relationship and don't want to be approached, you wouldn't wear a button at all, right? If you're in a relationship but are interested in being approached, you would wear a button that's auburn. If you're in a relationship and looking for another partner but don't want to be approached at the moment, it would be a teal. If you're in a relationship, aren't necessarily seeking a partner, but could be convinced given it's the right person, it would be aquamarine. If you're in a relationship, are no longer interested in being in a relationship, and are looking for someone who will give you an excuse to exit that relationship, it'll be an azul. Now, for the initiators. And this could be men, women, non-gender conforming individuals. That's the beauty of the buttons. We get a clear idea of who are the people who want to be approached and those who are willing to approach. So, for the approachers, if you're single and are willing to approach someone, but you're shy and require some convincing or a clear signal, you'll wear an olive green button. But if you're willing to approach and don't need a clear signal, it'll be an apple red. If normally you're willing to approach, but today you don't feel like approaching and would like that person to hold on to hope for another day, autumn orange. Maybe you're willing to approach, but only if that person is a vegetarian or a vegan, and you don't want to waste your time approaching a person that isn't, so you require a signal to ensure that the person you would be approaching would meet that particular dietary curriculum. Mountbatten pink. You know, these colors are coming from Marty's heart, how Marty feels the appropriate color is, but there's so many others out there. Doesn't this system, this path seem so much easier, less complicated than the messy and uncertain system we have right now? And you may have all your own button color paths that I haven't mentioned yet. So write into Marty at martysminutedmeditations.com if you have some that you would like to add to the mix. Go ahead. Marty's curious. Marty has a full list here. I mean, just pages and pages of colors and situations. Lots of colors for us all to memorize. You know, Marty's looking at his list of button colors right now, and he can see it might be a little confusing. Kind of overwhelming. If only there was an easier way for us to be okay with each other when we're seeking the possibility of love, when we're seeking a soulmate. It's strange, isn't it, that we so often seek Companionship Island because we dislike the sea of loneliness. Like I said before, this sea of loneliness is a metaphor. The loneliness is within you. So what does that mean? Maybe if you don't like this sea of loneliness, then maybe you aren't okay with yourself. How are we supposed to have a healthy relationship with another soul if we aren't at peace with our own? Even if we reach that Companionship Island, we're still surrounded by that sea of loneliness. Its waves still crash on our beach. Sometimes we may walk out to get our feet wet, and we have to touch that loneliness once again. Maybe the island will become barren. It will get boring. It will become fruitless, and you have to once again travel out into that sea. But if you're afraid of that sea, you may try to hold on to that island. Convince yourself this is the only island in the sea, and you better stay there for the rest of your life, because you'll never find another. But you rot there. You starve there, all because you're afraid to ship off once again. Maybe we just need to be okay with this sea of loneliness. This way, if we approach someone and we fail, we know it's not necessarily us. Maybe it's that the relationship isn't meant to be. And if we are approached and we don't like them, we can say no and trust that we haven't hurt that person's feelings and that that person isn't necessarily some creep. And also that we're safe to say no thank you to their advances. After all, if you've never tried to approach someone yourself, you have no clue how awkward and uncertain you would be. And if you've never been approached yourself, you never understand how difficult it is just to say no thank you. If you hate the sea of loneliness, how do you know that you truly love the island of companionship? How do you know it just isn't some escape? If you love traveling your sea of loneliness and there's an island that convinces you to leave the sea, then wow, that's truly a companionship island. But in order to do that, we have to make our sea of loneliness into a sea of solitude. So, for this meditation, I want us to put ourselves in that sea. Imagine yourself floating alone in a vast ocean. Pick whatever sea or ocean you like. Maybe it helps you to imagine the Mediterranean, the Atlantic, the Black Sea. Maybe you want to make a sea of your own. Maybe you see it in your mind's eye. Close your eyes. Take a breath in and out. And in and out. And in and out. Imagine yourself floating in this sea, alone. You see nothing but the waves, the sky. Just let yourself feel the sensation of those waves. After all, you have a body that's floating in that ocean. It's your body, no one else's. You feel maybe some fish come by and tickle your feet. Hey there, fish. That's all you gotta say. Hey there, fish. How are you today? It's lovely to see you. Lovely to feel you. Those are your fish. Those are the fish that are in your sea. No one else's. You get to take pleasure in those fish. Maybe you feel a breeze that hits your face, your hair. Hello there, breeze. That's your breeze. You get to have that breeze. It's no one else's. Unless you want them to have it. Maybe you feel the waves get more intense. You feel them bring you up and down. Enjoy that feeling. After all, it's your tempest that's coming. Your storm. The passion of your insides. Why not indulge in that feeling? Feel that feeling. Is it rage? Is it sadness? Is it passion, lust? Whatever it may be, it's yours. This is your sea of solitude. The place you can go when the world gets crazy, when your job is frustrating, when life just isn't going your way. At least you know you can come to this sea. You can hear the birds flying above you, seagulls that call out. You can hear the water gently crashing against itself. You can feel the fish down below. There's no sharks down there. It's your sea. You can keep all those sharks out. You don't need them coming by and nibbling at your feet. This is your sea, your place to go. And maybe the waves get heavier and heavier, more intense. You feel the breeze turning into a full wind, and a storm comes by. You don't need to be afraid. It's just you. It's a part of you that's filled with passion and love. Let it push you around. Let it create a journey for you through your own sea. Where does it take you? Where do you go? Breathe in and out, and in and out. Let that sea bring you around, taking you back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Maybe the sea settles. Wasn't that a wild ride? That short little segment of going back and forth, letting that storm take you. It's your sea. It's your storm. It can do whatever you want it to do. The sea is safe. It's okay to be alone here. What does it make you do? What does it ask of you? It asks you to love yourself, to take a moment with yourself. Enjoy feeling your body in this ocean. Enjoy feeling your body in this space. After all, this is the body you have. This is the ocean you have. We may never get another one. We may never get to enjoy another sea of solitude. Just breathe here. It's okay to be here. It's okay to come back here. Maybe you've returned here after being on Companionship Island for a while. You're getting used to this space again. Be here. Breathe. Remember, it's you. And you love you, don't you? You should, because your sea is a beautiful sea. With beautiful fish, a beautiful sky, a breathtaking horizon. There's so much to find in this sea. You don't need a companionship island right now. You just need this sea to enjoy it, to indulge in it. So float in the sea of loneliness, of solitude, and be content with it. After all, you have the entire sea to yourself. The sky is clear and beautiful. The ocean is filled with breathtaking creatures, all with their own special meaning and purpose. There are plenty of islands that you may come across, all special in their own way. And even if you decide not to plant your flag there, at least you visited. At least you took that opportunity to explore a new land. You can take that memory with you when you ship off to sea once again. Then, when you're ready, you can breathe in some courage. Stand up, approach that potential soulmate, give them a smile and say, "Hello there, I'm Marty. What's your name?" Well, you wouldn't say Marty, would you? You would say your name. You would say your name with all the confidence and hope and respect that you could muster in that moment. Completely at peace in your sea of solitude. Thank you for listening to this episode of Marty's Minute Menitations. I hope you enjoyed this journey. I know Marty did. If you did, consider making a donation or becoming a monthly donor so Marty could manifest his new microphone and continue to make the work he loves so dearly. All those links will be in the description. And until next time, I'll be here, waiting, ready to meditate.